Cool. Well, thank you so much, Dante and Suresh, for joining. Um, as we kick off this sort
Well,
of mini interview, casual discussion, it'd be great if you could maybe just introduce yourselves and what your role is at Apex.
Yeah, of course, happy to. So my name is Dante Scornaienchi, and I run Apex's product and sales engineering team. I've been with the firm for about 4 years now, and prior to my role in sales engineering, I led our product delivery teams.
yeah. My name is Suresh Ramachandran, and I do client developer experience, the technology side. In terms of making sure we have a common gateway, common solutions engineering, and common platforms that our customers can integrate with.
Fantastic. What does Apex do? What are some of the key products and use cases that customers are using you for?
It's a good question. So, if I could summarize what Apex does, our CEO Bill Capuzzi, his famous phrase is giving everyone on the planet the opportunity to invest in their future. And so it's funny. It's the way that he outlines that actually does really resonate with me in the way that I think about what Apex does. And so, from a technical perspective, what that means is that we offer digital investing solutions to financial institutions, startup firms, really anyone who wants to bring an investing solution in a retail trading capacity to the masses, right? So we have customers that provide, if you've heard of robo advising solutions, right? Kind of a set it and forget it model. We have customers who do really deep and intricate retail trading solutions, right? So if you want to buy equities, fixed income, mutual funds, different asset types such as that, those are some of the things we offer as well. We empower our clients and those institutions to bring those solutions to market.
The one term we use quite often, and it relies, and it is very true. It rings very true as we are the fintech for the other fintechs. You know, we provide the platform so that people with ideas in the fintech space can integrate at a lower cost. That's the platform, so that the average person can get into the investment market. If I put it.
That's super interesting. So you're sort of not maybe the end customer facing brand, but you're powering a lot of those brands to bring their product to market. Is that right?
Exactly.
Wow, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about integrations and particularly around API integrations. How important is the API to what Apex does?
It's so funny that you say that about how asking how important it is for you know APIs to be a part of the Apex offering. I'll say it candidly, it's everything. Right. I think when I first joined Apex on this journey, however many years ago it was now, I think what was interesting is that kind of one of the key lines people would say is it's clearing and custody with an API suite. And the reason that I say that it's so important to our success is it's really how we differentiate ourselves in the space. I think for those who don't have complete context about what investing can look like, especially in this market, it wasn't shocking 8 to 10 years ago, to be paying $5 to $10 for every trade you made, to be opening your account with physical paperwork and having to actually provide a wet signature. If you wanted to transfer your assets somewhere, again, filling out paperwork, all of these clunky things, right? And so Apex's really claim to fame in the space is that we've really brought digital trading to the masses, right? So it's this idea that now that we have empowered our clients to provide technology offerings that really bring investing at scale, all of a sudden you can offer commission free trading, right? You can open an account, and even if that person only has $100 to start investing, you can support that account because you're utilizing APIs to do so rather than manual processes. So,
Yeah, one thing to add is like, because the customers with the idea and a limited amount of venture money, it is important for us in this market where the niche players used to exchange files in the middle of the night and processes that were very batch driven. mainframe-ish, to get into have a set of APIs that are real time, So APIs is the heart, and APIs and eventing are the heart of what we are proposing for the market. But that changes the game quite a bit for the whole market, you know. So if you ask how important is API, yes, it's the heart of what we do.
Yeah, it is. It is, to put it another way, it is the way that every customer integrates with you,
Mm.
and it allows amazing features like the real-timeness of your product. It reduces the cost of, you know, the cost and increases the speed of delivering these features. Is that right?
And the differentiator is the market traditionally relied on a large batch processing. Uh, and
Mm,
the API allows you to get real-time information, real-time settlement, real-time ledgers, real-time information back to the end customer, back to the clients. So that's the market differentiator out there with an
makes
API-based
sense.
model.
Sorry,
Yeah, I
Dante.
think I think one thing that I would add there to echo Suresh's point is kind of talking about these batch files, right? So it's like you think about, especially for those of us who probably do most of our banking on our phone, right? Who do like most of our, let's say, financial wellness items, like are actually mostly on our phone now or on our computer, right? And if you go in there, and especially for a digital investing platform, you make a transaction, right? You buy, a couple shares, you deposit some funds. All of that happening instantaneously to you as the end user is table stakes now, right? That's what you come to expect. For the industry as a whole, it's actually a very new concept. And for the longest time, that was a lot of putting technology on top of mainframes and street side green screens, all of this stuff, shadow ledgers, all of these things that made it look to the investor that things were happening in real time. And now what Apex is empowering is actually building what Suresh had kind of called out, an API suite that allows customers, rather than having to build some of that infrastructure on their own, to connect directly to APIs, right? So a great example, and kind of putting it in the investor's perspective, is they open that account. Our client is integrating to an account service to open it up instantly. Then when they go to fund it and they want to see how much cash they have available, the client can empower the app to call an Apex API to get those calculations, right? So our customers are able to just integrate to those APIs instantaneously and get that information and provide it right back down to their investor without having to build, any tech debt, additional doing those calculations on their own, that type of thing.
It's a fascinating point that you raise, isn't it? Which is that the customer expects, particularly in fintech, expects a seamless, rapid, instantaneous experience, and yet behind the scenes, it's kind of funny to say it, but fintechs are playing a bit of a catch up. Everyone's playing a bit of catch up actually when it comes to integrations. But I think people would be shocked to hear how backwards some of the payment rails and some of the other things about the financial system really are. So that's a fascinating point. Yeah. Um, Given that integrations are so important, can you tell us a little bit about what a typical customer integration looks like at for Apex's customers?
Yeah, a typical integration at Apex is pretty straightforward. So we think about our APIs as functional services, right? So we have, as I kind of alluded to earlier, we have an accounts API service to open accounts. We have cash management to perform funding. We have orders to place orders of, symbols. If you want to like buy and sell Apple, right? You utilize the order service. Um, Pretty much on and on. We also have services for, understanding what assets are available to trade, things of that nature. And so, really, the typical customer integration is based off of those functional services. We also, as kind of part of what we offer, we have robust developer documentation that includes detailed walkthrough guides as well as an API reference that gives developers information about each of the endpoints that are available to them. We also provide a support model that empowers our clients. If they have any questions about anything, they feel like they can come to an Apex team and ask questions. We provide services as part of our onboarding and implementation. So
I think the most important thing to remember is, like, again, I keep reiterating, is to our customers who come in, maybe a large customer or maybe a smaller customer who has a definite fixed amount of venture money to get into the market, or a large customer which is time driven from a business pressure. The important thing is for us to be very clear in terms of handholding and make it really easy, and that's what we do in terms of approaching it from holding it as an integration project to making things self-service so that the customer can read through the documentation and integrate, as well as a solutions engineering in case you need the expertise, to get there, and then provide a test bed and a user acceptance bed, so that people can churn through their changes and future changes come through. So we are just tying up their software development lifecycle or technology development lifecycle with our technology development lifecycle. So there is definitely a lot of, like, needs to have some level of process and rigor that we provide so that our customers are guided into their implementation phase and go live phase.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about how those resources are maintained? You mentioned, the docs and the usage guides, and who's providing that, and what are some of the issues that you faced with it as well?
it's a good question. So from the perspective of how we provide our resourcing, so we have a plethora of teams, both from a frontline support perspective. So think about the teams that are directly answering questions human to human. We offer that type of support, as well as, again, what Suresh had alluded to, this idea of streamlining through developer documentation. We also have what we call a service knowledge base. So we actually provide a bunch of materials out of the box that include kind of a lot of operational guides for our user interfaces that we offer. We also provide additional documentation to support those screens, things of that nature. I think as part of, as we build out our support model, I think what we've really come across as kind of something we've been working on is that as we roll out functional services, right? We have to think about our customers kind of come to the table with similar problems. And what I mean by that is whether it's a large financial institution that's looking to launch a new line of business or a startup that's doing digital investing for the very first time, they come to the table to integrate to our APIs, and they actually have a pretty similar question set. Right? A lot of it to do with, okay, if I'm going to code to this account service, like what logic do I need to put in place to effectively make those calls? And so really for us, we've been focused on, if we have clients across different business types asking the same questions, how can we provide them, additional technology support to make integration to us easier? Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest point from a purely a technologist angle for me is, two things are important for us, is to make sure we are reliable and we are scalable. I think Dante pretty much covered the aspect of how do we make it easy to integrate with us, like the cost of integration, the cost of going live. The next aspect is like we have to make sure our systems are running 99.x9% of the time, so that we provide the level of reliability of a very stable platform back to our customer. And our customer also needs to make sure that they have coded things to the right standards. So we have the dual role of making sure they are guided in, and we provide a stable platform. So I see that over and over again, like, as we, not just here but in industry, integration is always a tricky issue, and both parties need to agree on making sure this integration is really smooth and flexible, and as well as it extends and grows with time.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think many of our customers at Speakeasy sort of echo similar points, right? And if I'm sort of to paraphrase a little bit, it sounds like, you have a series of customers, all of whom start to have very similar integration challenges. And so rather than ask customer A, customer B, customer C to all address the challenges in the same way, is there a way that you can take the burden away from them? And in so doing, Suresh, to your point, make that integration a lot more reliable. That's something that comes up a lot in the discussions that we have with our customers. Yeah. Maybe it's a good segue actually to talking about some of the key initiatives that you're thinking about to improve the Apex API.
Yeah, one of the key areas that we've been working on and improving upon is kind of, again, we talked about this area in which all of our customers, they come to integrate to our services and they have pretty similar needs, right, depending upon the use case. And so really it's this idea of that gap between, the investor experience that they're building, their own business logic within that experience, and our APIs. How can we help bridge the gap? So we're actually launching an SDK here at Apex, which we're really excited about. Again, from our perspective, we typically see that around 20 to 30% of the code that's utilized to integrate to our APIs is actually pretty standard, right? Of course, there's different coding languages, things of that nature, but it becomes this area where you're thinking to yourself, well, I just watched this client, code to our APIs in this way, and now this group is having to do the same thing, but they're doing it in kind of a few different ways. And so how do we get that feedback across gaps? And so we've really wanted to focus in this area of how can we make development to our APIs as easy as possible. And so an SDK was a no-brainer.
I think mostly like when you deal with customers, one aspect of it is they really want good examples, good documentation, good best practices. But what SDK gives us a guided path towards getting there, and the integration of having tools like Speakeasy, where we can automate the SDK production, is more important, because SDK is definitely, if we do a manual approach towards SDK generation, a non-automated approach towards SDK generation, it's going to be a costly maintenance effort. But here, when we talked about scale, with our approach we have taken with SDK is making sure we stay true to our specification. We told the customers, here is the contract, okay? And then make sure that we produce these SDKs in as many languages as possible, where the customers, so that we cover whether it is a Node or JavaScript customer or a Go customer or a Java customer, we ease their integration cost quite a bit. And as well as provide them, hey, this is the guided path you get to walk through, which makes it a lot more easier for them to do things,
Yeah, that's an amazing, answer. Could we maybe actually dive a little bit deeper, actually? Maybe why do you think SDKs are so important to that integration journey? What sort of benefit are they giving to customers? And particularly for people who may not quite understand, they understand what an SDK is, but like, how does that really help your end users? What kind of benefits are they bringing?
So I can take this first, and then Dante, you add your side of the. I think first and foremost is SDK provides you almost a framework, okay? And in application development, the framework is the most important thing. You have the framework to build something within it, So SDK provides you that frame in which you can draw your picture, your user experience, and a lot of things that you have to think yourself. For example, how do you do security? How do you do paginations? How do you do error handling? How does the object map look like from a API JSON back to it? Is all done for you in your native language. So I would see SDK providing that, like a little bit of booster shot to your, not a little bit, a huge booster shot to your effort, so that some of these boilerplate things are taken care of for you. If I may say, that's what we are counting on, is not having to explain it, but rather just give it and say, here is the road, fish for yourself. We're not fishing for you, you know?
I think the other piece of this that I'll add, and again from the context of being in product delivery with our existing clients at Apex for the past few years as well, is the breaking change mitigation as well. So what's
Yeah.
interesting is that of course we've had a ton of demand from new customers asking, "Hey, we want this integration to be as easy as possible. Do you have an SDK?" And what's funny is for our existing customers, they're almost asking for it without asking for it. And what I mean by that is, naturally as an API evolves and things need to change, and especially in an industry that's as regulated as ours, like changes will come, right? And the idea is that if our clients were integrated to an SDK, we'd actually be able to mitigate a lot of that exposure to them via the SDK and us handling that on our side rather than them having to do additional code work. So that's been a huge opportunity space for us as well, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And again, it tracks very well with the things that we've heard from our customers, right? Where without an SDK, you're really putting the burden of the integration on them. There's no framework. It's just sort of, here's the API docs, good luck. And with the SDK, giving them that tool, that framework that helps them integrate more easily and also tackle some of these advanced issues, like, how do you mitigate breaking changes, for example. Cool. So that's how the SDK helps the end customer, the end user who's integrating with your API. What sort of impact, what kind of benefits do you hope that these SDKs are going to have for Apex as a business, and then maybe yourselves actually as like engineering and solution engineering sort of leaders?
I can take that one first. So it's a great question, kind of asking about like how Apex foresees the benefits. I think it's a given with the addition of an SDK that of course we'd see additional kind of speed of time to market, right, for those new entrants. I think especially as I look forward and Apex continues to innovate, add new products and features, things of that nature, a lot of how we think about priority is customer demand, right? Who's asking for things at what intervals? And in those times, we actually have to have a lot of tough conversations about, hey, these clients are asking for it, but they haven't completed their integration yet, right? And so if we're able to empower our customers to integrate faster, right, and get to market quicker and see how their platforms evolve, then it helps us anticipate, okay, what's going to be the greatest value to them across more business lines? What should we launch? How should we think about it? That type of thing. So it starts as simple as, hey, yes, everyone wants to move faster and get to market quicker, but like what that can actually turn into actually has a lot of, bigger implications to how we think about our roadmap.
Yeah. I think one of the important thing is you need to we talk about customer benefit. The implicit model in our business model is like until the customer goes live, we are providing a service, a platform. It's almost operates like we don't make any money or in terms of revenue earned until the customer has clients who are starting to trade. Okay, the shorter the cycle for them to be successful and get more customers into their tech startup world, the faster it is for us to be successful here. Second piece of it is it also introduces a lot of standardization, even in internal calls or internal testing. The third thing is what Dante mentioned before. We are able to manage change to our customer because we have integrated more into the customer space more effectively than just telling them to integrate to an API. Now we can say, hey, here is the version X of my SDK, and here is how you manage your change from version X to version Y. We have a little bit more control in easing that change, which is very much needed for us in terms of business like flexibility and just agility on the business side of things. So that is what Dante was touching on the business agility in terms of what else do we provide. And also how do we manage change as we change our business and make it more agile. But the more important thing is the internal benefits and the revenue stream benefit is all tied to how quickly and how well is customer able to take something, adopt it, and change. And so that's the strategy around it.
Makes a ton of sense. Thank you so much. Couple of last questions, I guess. Maybe one of them is just um, why did you pick Speakeasy to generate these SDKs? What alternatives were you thinking about? I think, Suresh, you had touched a little bit upon um, that decision before, but did you consider building in-house, using OSS and using other vendors?
So yes, and I've been very closely, and Simon, like since we met last year at the fintech, meetup, I think I always knew that being able to generate code, whether it is AI-driven code generation or spec-driven code generation with AI-driven improvements, is the way to go. And second piece of it is what we are looking for as a partner who has established a platform that could get a spec and generate code and generate good documentation that go along with the code. Okay. And supported all kinds of languages. We could do it. We could build this technology in house, and most of my engineers would be saying, "We should do this too," But you guys have been in the market. You guys have established these things really well, and this makes us to leverage the platform you built. And for us to it gives us a head start in terms of cost. The other alternatives are there are other vendors too, but we kind of did a comparison, and we found you to be the most matching with respect to what our needs are in the space. So that's how this came into. But few things that I am very happy about is, and I'll continue to see that the improvements there is like the API generations, the example generations, the documentation generation. All these are starting to become as low touch as we can make it. So that's the great scalability factor that I have.
I think the other thing that I would add to the point of having Speakeasy come in versus to the point, because yes, we hear it. I mean, uh, engineering resources across the industry are always going to be the first to raise their hand and be like, well, we should do it. We should own this. But I think an overlooked value of having a firm like Speakeasy come in is that it's an external evaluation of our services in a way, right? Like you're taking in our information and trying to distill it for the first time. And the way that really plays out as a benefit is that, like, let's face it, like the investing space is complicated, right? And so for a lot of us, we don't realize the industry knowledge that we've built over time. And so for us, the way we think about our functional services, how trading works, it's all second nature. And that can reflect in the way that you build and design your tech stack, right? And so it's great to have an external party come in and say, hey, we're trying to make your development easier. We actually have some feedback on how you thought about these things because we may not have that full digital investing background. So I feel like that's been a huge boon as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Makes a lot of sense. Oh yeah, thank you. Um, and then maybe just to dive in a little bit there, did you do any sort of build versus buy sort of comparisons, and what would it have taken to build these internally yourselves? Like, would that have required, hiring a team with certain language expertise and maintaining that team, and you know, hiring takes a long time, that kind of stuff. Did you ever go far down that path?
Yeah, and definitely, like anytime you have an initiative, once you decide like you need to have an SDK layer in between, the buy versus build will always come into picture. But the buy it provides certain definite scalability advantages. And in this case, it's not a pure buy. It is an integration with a partner, who wants to grow with us and has already demonstrated the technology capabilities on their side. So it's great to see that the buy has, yes, build has its own advantages of making it as customizable to but the cost is prohibitive. If you say that okay, I want a Java SDK, I need 3 Java developers. and maybe one for maintenance every year. Then you add a JavaScript, you add 3 more developers for JavaScript, or 2 developers, and then Python, 2 more developers. In the end, you would have a big SDK team. And here, if you look at this, we have one framework developer who integrates with you, is able to work with you guys closely, and that provides the factor of. And what is good is, if we wanted a level of customization to it, we are able to insert that and inject that into the system as we learn more about the SDK and how does the customer use it, rather than start out trying to build this Cadillac. So that's where the buy kind of wins out, rather than reinvent the wheel out here.
Yeah, I love that point. One of the things that we also hear is that, it's very easy to get one of these initiatives started to build internally, but sooner or later, the person who started the initiative leaves the company, or maybe just loses interest. They want to build something new. They don't want to maintain an SDK.
Right.
And then now you've got to go backfill that position and maintain that thing over time. Unfortunately, the world is littered with SDKs that, have become now defunct and non-maintained. So,
right. And
maybe
it
final.
is interesting to build it. If I say,
Yeah.
and then it is a continuous maintenance, and that's where the cost becomes a little higher, rather than the change management around it. Anyway, just wanted to add that point to it.
Totally makes sense. Thank you. Maybe last question. How have things gone with Speakeasy so far? What should users expect, or when should they expect, rather, the SDKs to launch? And are there any other things that people should know about Apex?
So we have already launched the Java-based, and we are using an early adopter program to get some feedback from our customers, as well as internal feedback. So that gives us a baseline of things. It's just in terms of, the crawl and the walks, we are still definitely from getting up from the crawl to start walking, which means that we will have, once we feel like we have a good handle on this, within this quarter, we should have a couple more languages, which covers maybe 60-70% to maybe up to 80% of our install base, the kind of customers who are JavaScript shop or Python shop and Java shop. And then we will go into more of the C sharp and Go phases. There are Go fans out there who will only program in Go. So it definitely advantages out there of covering a major swath. So our thing is to evaluate. So now release certain things, get the feedback, work with you guys closely in terms of features and feature enhancements, as well as provide our customization and utility libraries to it. So we should see a very fast maturity model of our SDK as our client adopts and client gives us feedback, to where we are, hey, you should improve this further. And this lets also Speakeasy improve their product, in terms of how another customer may reach out. So this is Dante touched about. A lot of problems are similar, and at the end it is a pattern. And if we can give you guys a particular pattern to improve upon, that lets you improve your product, and it also improves us. So that's where we are. We are definitely in the beginning stages of a longer journey. Dante, I don't know if you'd add any more to it.
Yeah, I think you said it well. To your kind of question about, what else Apex is up to and how we're thinking about things, I would say what's really interesting is that for folks who've had exposure to the investing space, right, their first reaction is typically, wow, I cannot believe how many requirements there are and all of the intricacies that go into it. Someone has an idea of, oh, well, we want, maybe we're an all-in-one banking app and we need to add digital investing to stay competitive with some of the other, fintech players out there, right? I would say if you've done an evaluation and have considered launching digital investing over the last few years, I would strongly consider checking out Apex and how we've really revolutionized a real-time platform that allows customers to, easily integrate just from the perspective of being able to rely directly upon APIs to build their platform versus rather having to do their own calculations and the things we talked about earlier. So
Totally makes sense. Yeah. It's awesome. Congratulations on everything you guys have been doing. It sounds like a really amazing, exciting time at Apex where you're really up leveling that integration story just as a whole for all your customers. So yeah, kudos, congratulations. I think that's it. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll catch you offline.
thank you, Simon.
Yeah.
Pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you, man. I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. See you.